I'm Grace Watson, 32, a financial analyst in Richmond, Virginia. For years, I poured tens of thousands of dollars into keeping my family in Charlottesville afloat, rent private school tuition for my niece medical bills. I thought it was my duty my way to stay connected to them. But every time I reached out, I got silence. No invites to family gatherings, no calls, just excuses. I'd see their posts online, smiling at parties, vacations I paid for, while I was left out like I didn't exist. Then came that April evening at a rare family dinner I was actually invited to. I sat there hoping for a moment of warmth, but instead my parents leaned in and said, "You're not family, just a wallet." My sister chimed in, "We're fine without you." Those words hit like a punch. I walked out heart racing, knowing I had to do something drastic. What happened next flipped their world upside down and mine too. Want to know how it all unfolded? Stick around to see how I took back my life. If you've ever been taken for granted by family, drop your story in the comments below. Hit like, subscribe, and let's unpack this together. When I was a kid in Charlottesville, my family seemed picture perfect from the outside. But inside, it was a different story. My dad, Richard Watson, an insurance salesman, and my mom, Carol Watson, a part-time librarian, had their favorites. My brother, Russell Watson, 5 years older than me, could do no wrong. He'd come home with C's, and Dad would slap his back saying, "That's my boy, a future leader." My sister Danielle Watson, 3 years older, was their princess. She'd skip school, sneak out, and Mom would laugh it off, saying she's just spirited. Me, I was the afterthought. I'd bring home straight A's, and they'd nod like it was expected. No praise, no warmth, just a quick glance, before they turned back to Russell or Danielle. I remember one Christmas I was 12 sitting at the dinner table. Russell, 17, bragged about crashing Dad's old Chevy during a joyride. Dad chuckled, handed him the keys again the next week. Danielle, 15, demanded a new dress for a school dance, and Mom emptied her savings to buy it. I asked for a $10 book on astronomy, my passion. Mom sighed, said, "We're tight this month, Grace. Tight for me, but not for them." That moment stuck a quiet sting I buried deep. School was my escape. I threw myself into studies, acing every test, joining debate club, anything to stand out. Teachers noticed, my parents didn't. At 16, I won a math competition, first place in the state. I rushed home, trophy in hand, thinking this time they'd care. Dad was on the couch watching football with Russell. Mom was helping Danielle with her makeup. They glanced at my trophy, said, "That's nice," and went back to their favorites. I stood there invisible, clutching cold metal. By high school, the pattern was clear. Russell got a car for his 18th birthday, even though he barely passed. Danielle got endless second chances, flunking classes, but always figuring it out. I studied late nights alone, driven by a need to prove I was enough. My senior year, I applied to colleges, aiming high. When I got a full scholarship to the University of Virginia, I told them at dinner. Dad grunted, "Good saves us money." Mom said, "Don't get cocky, Grace." Russell smirked. Danielle rolled her eyes. I swallowed the hurt, packed my bags, and left for college, determined to build a life where I mattered. Charlottesville wasn't kind to them after I left. Danielle got pregnant at 20, dropped out of community college. Her boyfriend, Colin Harris, stuck around just long enough to meet their daughter, Luna Watson, then bailed when she was 2. Russell landed a job at a local bank, coasting on charm, but never climbed the ladder. Dad's insurance gigs dried up as online companies took over. Mom's health started slipping, chronic pain, doctor visits piling up. They struggled, scraping by while I built my career in Richmond. I'd call home hoping for connection, but got the same cold distance. Dad would ask, "How's work? Not me, just the job." Mom would hint at their bills. Danielle only called when she needed something for Luna. That distance grew, but so did my guilt. Luna was innocent, a bright kid with big dreams stuck in a family falling apart. I couldn't let her suffer for their mistakes. So when they started leaning on me, I didn't push back. I thought sending money would bridge the gap, make me part of the family I'd always wanted. I was wrong. 5 years ago, I landed my job as a financial analyst in Richmond. The paycheck was good $80,000 a year, and I felt stable, ready to build my life. But back in Charlottesville, my family was unraveling. Dad called one evening, voice heavy, saying they couldn't cover rent. Mom followed up, mentioning her mounting medical bills. My sister Danielle texted about my niece Luna needing a better school to thrive. I didn't hesitate. Luna was 8, bright, with dreams bigger than our small hometown. I wanted her to have a shot, so I started sending money. Every month, I wired $1,000 for my parents' rent, keeping their Charlottesville apartment secure. For Luna, I covered $8,000 a year for her private school tuition, ensuring she stayed in a place that nurtured her potential. Mom's medical bills, doctor visits, prescriptions added up fast, and I paid those too, a few $1,000s here and there. Over time, I shelled out tens of thousands of dollars, dipping into my savings. It wasn't just about Luna. I thought helping would make me matter to them, pull me closer to the family I'd always felt outside of. But the requests didn't stop. Dad called one afternoon asking for $5,000 to fix their leaking roof. "It's urgent, Grace." He said, no warmth in his tone, just expectation. I sent it, cutting back on my own expenses. Danielle was worse. She'd call, voice casual, asking for cash to buy designer clothes or fund weekend getaways. "Luna deserves a mom who looks good," she'd say, laughing like it was a joke. I gritted my teeth. Sent $2,000 once, then another 1,000 a few months later. Each transfer felt heavier, like I was buying their approval. Mom was the master of guilt. During one call, she sighed. "Family takes care of family, Grace. You're doing the right thing." But there was no thank you, no acknowledgement of what I sacrificed. Instead, she'd pivot to stories about my brother Russell and his big plans at the bank, or Danielle's tough life as a single mom. My efforts were invisible, expected, like I owed them for existing. I'd hang up, stomach knotted, wondering why it never felt like enough. The pressure built slowly. I'd lie awake checking my bank account, seeing my savings dwindle. I cut back on dinners, skipped vacations, told myself it was temporary. Luna's smile in the school photos Danielle sent kept me going. She was worth it. But doubt crept in. Was I helping them or just enabling them? I confided in my friend Scott Miller, an engineer I'd known since college. Over coffee in Richmond, I laid it all out, tens of thousands of dollars, sent no gratitude, just more demands. Scott listened, then leaned forward, eyes serious. "Grace, they're using you," he said. "You're not their daughter to them. You're their ATM. You need to think about yourself." I brushed it off at first. They were family. I couldn't just walk away. But Scott's words stuck. I started noticing how Dad's calls always came when a bill was due. Danielle never asked about my life, only my wallet. Mom's family duty speeches felt rehearsed, like a script to keep me hooked. I kept sending the money, but something shifted. I began tracking every dollar: rent, tuition, medical bills, realizing just how much I'd given. Tens of thousands of dollars over 5 years, and what did I get? Not a single invitation to join them for a holiday, not even a thank you note. By the end of those 5 years, I was exhausted. My savings were thinner, my patience thinner still. I wanted to believe they'd see me as more than a checkbook, that one day they'd call just to talk. But every call, every text came with a price tag. I wasn't their daughter, I was their lifeline, and they weren't letting go. Last summer, I started noticing cracks in their gratitude. Scrolling through Instagram one evening in Richmond, I froze. A photo popped up, my parents smiling, surrounded by relatives at a backyard party. The caption read, "Celebrating 35 years of love." It was their anniversary, a big deal, and I hadn't been invited. I'd sent thousands of dollars for their rent, medical bills, my niece's school, but not a single text or call about the event. My chest tightened as I swiped through more pictures, my sister laughing, my brother raising a glass, everyone together without me. I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my phone, feeling like an outsider in my own family. A few weeks later, it happened again. I saw a post from Danielle, a selfie on Virginia Beach, with mom and dad captioned "Family Getaway." They'd used my money, thousands I'd sent for their expenses, to fund the trip. I'd cut back on my own plans, skipped dinners out to keep their lives afloat, yet they didn't even ask me to join. I called mom the next day, voice shaky, hoping for an explanation. "It's not a big deal, Grace," she said, brushing me off. "We figured you were too busy with work." Too busy, I'd driven to Charlottesville for Luna's school events, made time for them whenever they asked. Her words stung like I was an afterthought not worth inviting. I tried Danielle next, thinking my sister might be more honest. "Danielle, why didn't anyone tell me about the beach trip?" I asked over the phone. Her tone was cold, dismissive. "You're always so busy, Grace. We didn't think you'd fit in." Fit in? I'd paid for their hotel, their gas, probably their sunscreen. My stomach churned as I hung up, her words echoing. I wasn't family to them, just a means to an end. I scrolled back through their posts, seeing more moments I'd missed: holiday dinners, birthday parties, all shared online for the world to see, but not for me. Desperate for clarity, I called my Aunt Beverly Thompson, who lived nearby in Charlottesville. She'd always been blunt, the kind of relative who said what others wouldn't. I hoped she'd shed light on why they kept me out. "Beverly, why am I never invited?" I asked, voice cracking. Her response was a knife. "Grace, you're just their cash cow," she said, her tone matter of fact. "They don't need you there. They need your money. That's all you are to them." I sat in silence, her words sinking in. My aunt wasn't cruel, just honest, but it cut deeper than anything Mom or Danielle had said. I'd given tens of thousands of dollars, sacrificed my own comfort, and for what? To be erased from their lives. I tried one last time to connect. I sent a group text to Mom, Dad, and Danielle, suggesting a family dinner to catch up. No reply for days. Finally, Dad texted back, "We're good, Grace. Work's keeping you busy, right?" It was another brush off. Another door slammed shut. I stared at my phone, heart heavy, realizing they didn't want me closer. Every dollar I sent seemed to widen the gap, not close it. I thought about Luna, how I'd funded her school to give her a future, but even that felt tainted now. Was I helping her? Or just feeding their cycle of taking the exclusion? Wasn't new. I'd felt it since I was a kid. But seeing it play out so publicly on social media in their carefree posts made it unbearable. I'd been pouring my heart and savings into a family that didn't see me. Beverly's words rang in my ears, cash cow. I wasn't their daughter, their sister, just a bank account they could tap. By the end of that summer, I was done pretending it could change. I needed to face them to understand why they treated me this way, but I didn't know how much worse it would get. That April evening, I drove to Charlottesville for a rare family dinner. I'd been shut out for months, ignored for their anniversary, left off their beach trip, but I still hoped things could change. Pulling into my parents' driveway, I gripped the steering wheel, heart pounding with a mix of nerves and determination. Maybe this time they'd see me as more than a checkbook. I walked into their small apartment, the air thick with the smell of Mom's pot roast, and sat at the table with Dad, Mom, Danielle, and Russell. For a moment, it felt almost normal, like we were a family again. I tried to start light, asking about Luna's school play, hoping to ease into deeper talk. "She was great as the lead," Danielle said, barely looking up from her phone. Mom nodded, but her smile was tight, distant. Dad just grunted, cutting his meat. Russell stayed quiet, eyes on his plate. I pushed forward, desperate to connect. "I've been thinking we could do more together," I said, voice steady. "Maybe a weekend at the lake, all of us." Silence. They exchanged glances, and I felt the room shift, like I'd stepped into a trap. Dad leaned forward, his fork clinking against the plate. "Grace, let's be real," he said, voice cold. "You're not family, you're just a wallet." Mom nodded, her eyes hard. "It's true, Grace. You provide. And that's your role." My breath caught the words slicing through me. I turned to Danielle, hoping for a defense, but she smirked. "We're fine without you," she said, voice sharp. "You don't need to be here for that." Russell nodded, not meeting my gaze, his silence louder than words. "Dad, what do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. He didn't flinch. "You're good for money, Grace. That's what you do." I looked at Mom, pleading. "Mom, how can you say that I've done everything for you?" She shrugged, unmoved. "It's just how it is." My hands shook as I gripped the table, the room spinning. I turned to Danielle. "Danielle, I've paid for Luna's school year trips, everything. And this is what you think?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't act like a martyr, Grace. We don't need your drama." Russell finally spoke, his voice low. "Just drop it, Grace." I stared at him. "Russell, you agree with this?" He looked away, nodding again. Their words piled up, each one heavier than the last. I'd spent years sending money, cutting my own life short to keep theirs afloat, and this was my reward, a table full of people who saw me as nothing more than a bank. My chest burned, a mix of anger and betrayal. I thought of every dollar I'd sent, every sacrifice, every time I'd hoped they'd care. It was all a lie. I pushed my chair back, the screech cutting through their silence. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady, despite the tears stinging my eyes. "You won't get another cent from me." Dad scoffed like I was bluffing. "You'll come around," he said. Danielle laughed, a cruel edge to it. "Good luck on your own, Grace." Mom just stared, her face blank. Russell didn't look up. I grabbed my coat, my heart racing, and walked out. The door slammed behind me, the sound echoing in my ears as I stumbled to my car. Driving back to Richmond, I felt the weight of their words, but also a spark of resolve. I'd given them everything, tens of thousands of dollars, my time, my hope, and they'd thrown it back in my face. No more. Sitting in my apartment that night, I stared at my bank account, the numbers a reminder of what I'd lost. But it wasn't just money, it was the illusion of a family that never existed. I opened my laptop, pulled up the automatic payments for their rent, Luna's school, Mom's bills. My finger hovered over the cancel button. This wasn't impulsive. It was clarity. They didn't want me, only what I could give. I clicked, shutting off the flow of money that had defined me to them. For the first time, I chose myself. Early May, I canceled every automatic payment to my family. No more rent for Dad and Mom. No more tuition for Luna. No more covering medical bills. My bank account felt lighter, but so did my heart. I'd spent years pouring tens of thousands of dollars into their lives, hoping for love, only to be called a wallet. That dinner in April. Dad's cold words, Mom's agreement, Danielle's smirk, Russell's silence changed everything. I was done being their lifeline. The silence that followed was deafening, but it was also freeing. The fallout came fast. A week later, Danielle called, voice sharp. "Grace, what's going on?" Luna's school sent a notice about unpaid tuition. I took a breath, steadying myself. "Danielle, I'm not paying anymore. I told you I was done." She laughed like I was joking. "You can't do that to Luna. She needs you." My stomach twisted. Luna was the one person I still cared about, but I held firm. "You'll figure it out," I said, hanging up. She texted for days, alternating between pleas and insults, calling me selfish, heartless. I didn't respond. My sister had never cared about my life, only my money. Mom called next, her tone heavy with guilt. "Grace, we're behind on rent. You're abandoning us." I clenched my jaw. "Mom, you said I'm not family. I'm just acting like it." She paused, then tried her old line. "Family helps family." I cut her off. "Not when it's one-sided." Dad didn't call, but Russell did, his voice clipped. "Grace, you're making things hard for everyone." I almost laughed. "Russell, I've made things easy for too long." I hung up, blocking their numbers. My Aunt Beverly texted once saying, "You did the right thing." It was the only support I got from family. Their lives unraveled quickly. Without my money, Dad and Mom couldn't keep their apartment. They moved into a smaller, cheaper place outside Charlottesville, one they could barely afford. Dad's insurance sales had dried up years ago, and Mom's part-time library job wasn't enough. They sold their car, cut back on everything. Danielle struggled most. Luna's private school expelled her for unpaid fees, and she ended up in public school. Danielle couldn't maintain her lavish lifestyle, no more designer clothes or weekend trips. She moved back in with Mom and Dad, her pride bruised. Russell kept his bank job, but he was no help to them, always claiming he was too broke to pitch in. I felt guilt, especially for Luna. She was innocent, caught in their mess. I reached out to her teacher, Chad Ellis, to check on her. Luna's adjusting Chad told me over the phone. She's resilient, but it's tough. I asked if there was a way to help her directly without involving Danielle. He connected me to a scholarship fund at the public school, and I donated $5,000 anonymously to support Luna's extracurriculars. It wasn't much, but it was all I could do without reopening the door to my family's demands. My coworker Noah Carter noticed my stress at work. Over lunch in Richmond, I told him everything, the years of giving the dinner the cutoff. "You're stronger than you think," Noah said, his voice kind. "You don't owe them your life." His words stayed with me, easing the guilt. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Judith Klein, to process it all. "Grace, you were conditioned to feel responsible," Dr. Judith told me in our first session. "Breaking that cycle is freedom, but it's also grief." She was right. I grieved the family I'd never had, but each session helped me rebuild. Months passed and I focused on myself. I took a promotion at work, boosting my salary to $95,000 a year. I moved into a better apartment in Richmond, started traveling small trips at first, like a weekend in DC. My friend Scott invited me to his family's Thanksgiving, and for the first time I felt welcomed without strings attached. I kept in touch with Luna through Chad, sending her books and notes, careful to avoid Danielle. I wasn't her mom, but I could still be her aunt on my terms. My family didn't change. Dad sent one email 6 months later asking for a small loan. I deleted it. Mom left a voicemail, her voice frail, saying she missed me. I didn't call back. Danielle posted on Instagram vague complaints about betrayal, but never mentioned me by name. Russell stayed silent as always. Their lives were harder now, but they'd made their choices. They'd treated me as a resource, not a person, and I wasn't going back. Looking back, I learned to value myself beyond what I could give. My family saw me as a wallet because I let them, but no more. I built a life with people who valued me. Scott, Noah, even Dr. Judith. The hardest lesson was accepting that family isn't owed your loyalty when they don't offer theirs. I'm still healing, but I'm free. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for listening. It's not easy to share, but it's real. If you've ever felt used by family or had to choose yourself, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your stories matter, and so do you.